In the last video, we talked about how to capture good real estate photos using your stock camera app. In this video, we're gonna talk about how to edit that footage that you just captured. Stay tuned until the end, because I'm gonna show you some tips that'll save you a lot of time in the editing process. Let's check it out. Hey everyone, I'm Joe, and I've been making real estate content since 2020. One thing I've noticed over the past few years is that iPhone cameras have gotten really good. I use an HDR imaging technique to capture my photos, but you can actually get really good quality using the stock camera app. So that means that you don't need to buy extra lenses and extra camera bodies and all that extra stuff just to get good quality images. You can use the stock camera app, put it on a tripod, and use that equipment that I talked about earlier so you can capture that sweet, sweet image. So before we begin, I want to talk about some of the things that you're going to need during this step. So in the previous step, we talked about that B-script cage that helps keep everything together. And during that video, I had taken the wide angle lens off, and we were able to use the standard wide angle on iPhone. And then we attached a light as well as a mirror to help you see your shot as you're lining it up. We're gonna move all of that extra stuff out of the way and focus on getting the footage that you captured on your phone onto your computer so you can get to editing. So we're gonna use Lightroom to edit during this video. And if you want a tutorial on how to edit using Lightroom on your iPhone, then go to the comment section and type in the phone emoji so I know that's what you're looking for. But there are some significant improvements on Mac that you get as compared to trying to edit on iPhone. Also, whenever you're editing on such a large display, either on a Mac or let's say on an iPad, you can zoom in a lot easier so that you can highlight those fine points that are maybe a little dark or maybe a little too light in your photo, and you can make those fine-tune adjustments. Whereas when you're on your iPhone, you're gonna have to zoom in a lot just to do that same thing. So using iMac or MacBook or even iPad makes this process a whole lot easier. I'll be showing it to you using my 2021 iMac. This thing is a beast. And if you want some more content on how this has completed my entire workflow, we can definitely talk about that in the future. Before I go on an even longer rant about how much I love this computer, let's go ahead and get the photos we took on iPhone, send it to Mac, and get started. But what I'm gonna do is select all the footage that was captured yesterday. I also took a few sample images using the HDR technique so that we can compare them side by side. We're gonna airdrop them over to the iMac. While that's processing, you're gonna wanna make sure that you create a new folder. I'm gonna name it sample images, but you can call it whatever you want. And here's one of the biggest benefits of using iPhone to capture real estate images. You could send some pretty hefty files through the air like magic. And so that's just one of the reasons why I love it. It's convenient and it has some incredible image quality, as we're gonna see when we pull it up on the big screen. In the meantime, while that's sending over, I wanna admonish you to grab a cup of coffee or a drink, put on some headphones, just so you can block out some of the distractions. You really wanna get in a state of flow when you're editing these photos, because that's gonna make the process go by so much quicker. Because when you get all these distractions coming in and out, it'll take a process that might take, less than 3 hours and draw that out into a 4 or 5 hour edit. I've actually been able to edit HDR photos, which takes a lot more steps than what I'm about to show you. And I've been able to do that in less than 2 hours once I get into flow. So prioritize getting some space where you won't be bothered so that you can get these done quickly and efficiently rather than doing a handful here or there and extending that editing time. Again, can you imagine that? We're sending gigabytes worth of data through the air like magic. Like, this is incredible. It's just amazing how far technology has come, and I can't wait to see what innovations come out within the next few years. You better believe that as soon as that new stuff comes out, we're gonna be here to talk about it together. So now that I have a copy of those sample images in my file, let's go ahead and move these over to Lightroom. Okay, now this is the fun part. We have our photos sent over from our camera to the computer. Now we're gonna take the images from that file and throw them into Lightroom. So let's go ahead and hit add photos. We've got our sample images here. I've also included, as you can see, a sample HDR merged image, and we're going to compare them side by side. Add those photos. Boom, Picasso, I like it. Awesome. So Lightroom has collected all of those images I captured, but I mean, just look at it. The images from the camera look amazing. Even if they're not HDR image, you can still see quite a large amount of detail, especially when you have the light working in your favor. But let's compare the two, the JPEG versus the HDR, and we can get a better sense for why I encourage realtors to learn HDR. So right over here, we've got the JPEG image. And if you scroll into that corner, you can see a tremendous amount of noise. And ideally, each room would have even lighting throughout. But as you know, through your listings, sometimes you have maybe a missing bulb here or a bulb that's a bit dimmer, or you might have a room with a large window, but a corner that doesn't have as much light as we see in this image. When we compare it to the HDR image that was captured using JPEG, you can see a tremendous amount more detail. It blows my mind what you can accomplish using this method. So let's compare them again. All that noise versus, boom, incredibly clean, magazine-worthy images. So again, I encourage all new realtors to learn this first, learn the technique of taking these photos. And as you get more listings, you can learn the HDR method so that you can get these magazine quality images using your iPhone. But let's go ahead and start editing these. There are certain imperfections we're going to want to minimize, like the noise. Whenever someone is looking at this as their potential new home, you're going to want to give it the most neutral representation of what it can look like. Bring out the detail in the shadows, make it a more neutral tone. So you don't want the color of the existing bulbs to influence a person's decision about the property. The first thing I like to do is just increase the exposure just a little bit. Increase the contrast. You want to take down those highlights, bring up the shadows. A lot of noise from that image once you lift the shadows too much. As far as the color temperature of the image, I typically like to bring down the yellows just a bit, but I'll go ahead and target this one area right over here and bring down that saturation. So let's go ahead and do that right over here. Okay. And already you have a nice representation of what that room looks like. Sometimes I like to cheat a little bit and bring a reference image over. As you can see now, comparing the two, your original image is a lot more warm than the one we are just editing right now. And you can see some more detail here in the shadows. But like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to push it too far or it's going to start looking funky. In order to counteract the noise in the shadows, let's go ahead and increase the noise reduction real quick. We're going to go and compare this to our HDR sample because I want you to see for yourself the benefits of using that technique. Using just your iPhone, you are able to get a really nice photo of that room. Remember how earlier we talked about how you can speed this process up? So you can hit Command C on your keyboard, and then you can go over to your other images and hit Command V, and it'll paste those settings to your other photos. So you don't have to go in and increase the brightness, contrast, do all that stuff over and over and over again. You can hit Command V, boom, paste it on the next one. This is why I keep talking about getting into flow, because you can really get into a nice headspace while you're doing these photos. While you got your music on, you are making progress in your images, you've got all the photos that you took out of the way before you know it. Now let's compare it to the HDR image. Command V, paste those settings over. The red is just a little bit blown out here. So I'm gonna go over to my color mixer and increase the saturation just a little bit. Remember how I was talking about using Lightroom on iPad or Mac to get into those fine details? Well, you can use the brush tool over here. In this case, I want to increase the saturation of this red even more. So I can go in with my trackpad, quickly and easily just highlight this one section and increase the saturation. Wow, that looks incredibly vibrant. This is phenomenal. And if we, again, compare it to our regular JPEG image, we can see a night and day difference in the details. And boom, wow, wow. So the one on the left, I mean, it's good, but the one on the right is magazine worthy. You can print this, put this on a wall, put this in a magazine, and it'll look great. You get a crisp, clear, magazine-worthy image using HDR. For an advanced tutorial on how to maximize your use of HDR images, stay tuned for the course that I've got coming out this summer. It's gonna amaze you what we can do with this iPhone sensor. I wanna thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm gonna be posting all the latest news and updates about the upcoming course on Instagram and TikTok. So you're gonna wanna follow me there to stay up to date. Please like this video if you found it helpful. And if you want the competitive advantage, you're gonna wanna subscribe and hit that bell. I hope you have a fantastic day. Stay safe.